everybody, and welcome back to another Doctor Who vinyl record review. In today's review I'm going to be taking a look at one of the latest releases from the Demon Music Group, seeing yet another 1960s Doctor Who serial pressed onto record for the first ever time. This time the first Doctor serial, Marco Polo, as written by John Lucarotti, a missing 60s classic with quite a reputation, featuring William Hartnell as the first Doctor alongside companions Susan, Ian and Barbara. This is one of the earliest missing Doctor Who stories, and it's one that I was rather excited to see get a vinyl record release. As always with this collection, it does of course feature brand new unique cover art that is presented across the entirety of this collector's set, making it look vibrant, stand out and very unique on the shelf. The recommended retail is around £70 and it is available to order now from various online retailers, including Amazon and Zoom. Something of which is also worth noting if you have a HMV local to you is that some local branches are in fact getting in some of the previous releases as a part of this series, including the Ghosts of N-Space, The Abominable Snowmen, Evil of the Daleks, so it might be worth checking in store if you are interested to take a look at this series physically in hand. As you may already know if you've been watching some of my previous vinyl record reviews, I absolutely love this series, and I really love in particular when Demon Music Group decide to cover a missing Doctor Who story, because it seems that missing Doctor Who serials kind of have two different categories. You either have the very well known ones, even though they're missing, the likes of the Daleks Master Plan, The Power of the Daleks, The Abominable Snowmen, or you have the episodes that not many people know as much about. Of course, very recently I did also take a look at the Record Store Day exclusive release of Massacre, and that is a Doctor Who story that I think people only know if they decide to search it out or decide to watch the Loose Cannon Recon or read the Target novelisation, which is something of which I am currently doing. Stories the likes of this, it feels very special for them to get a record release because we don't have a DVD, we don't have a Blu-ray, and as a result the amount of material that we have from these Doctor Who stories is not as much as other Doctor Who episodes, so if anything, a release the likes of this is very special. As always, the collector's set is wrapped in cellophane for protection, however over the front we do have the inclusion of the Vinyl Who sticker, and because I'm a sad human being I decided to try and prise this off the cellophane in order to keep it for this review. It does feature a few details about this release, as well as stating that this is in 1964 Doctor Who serial pressed across 4 140g vinyls as opposed to 4 180g vinyls that we've seen on some of the previous releases as a part of this collection. It also states at the bottom is a Lost TV story, as well as featuring a TARDIS etched flip side design. So starting to take a look at the cover art now, as always these collector sets are nothing short of beautiful. At the very top we get the inclusion of the new series Doctor Who logo, which has been given a lovely embossed silver foil finish, which once again stands out especially on that sunset background. At the very top we get the BBC logo, as well as the title of the story clearly printed in a white typeface. And then turning down to the very bottom, it also states that this is the original BBC TV soundtrack, which for those of you that don't know, basically this is the full cast audio from the story itself, which aired on the BBC back in the 1960s. However, some of the more visual stuff that goes on throughout the episode has linking narration in order to make the episode a little bit more coherent and easy to experience. Of course, the cover art itself follows exactly the same style to some of the previous releases as a part of this series, so as a result we have of course seen this TARDIS box design a number of times before, and to be honest I don't mind. It creates a sense of uniformity, and as always these designs are a nice balance of simplicity, lots of block colour but lots of detail at the same time. There's little specific areas of this piece of artwork that have lots of little minute details packed in. For example, the trailer, we also have the different bits of armour that the people are wearing as they walk towards China, and equally in the background here we have the inclusion of the hills and the Great Wall itself, all of which are made up of very simplistic block colours. The vast majority of the Gobi Desert is also one block colour, but at the same time it's littered with little details. It definitely adds a breath of fresh air to this 1960s episode. It's also nice to have a piece of cover art that doesn't focus solely on the obvious. It's nice that we have the absence of the Doctor and the rest of the TARDIS team and Marco Polo himself, because that after a while gets a little bit repetitive. It's nice to have something different and refreshing, and as I say, breathes new life into this 60s missing classic. Highlights for me include the trailer having a lovely wooden texture applied over the top, really making it pop, but also at the same time the various props and accessories and storage supplies that we have scattered around the TARDIS box, as that is of course tied down, and just above that we have the box itself of TARDIS, as well as the background have been given this lovely red colour palette. In between here we have this lovely glow, especially behind the hills itself, really creating that sense that the desert is warm, it's at the end of the day, the sun is setting. It makes for a lovely twist on this cover art, and it's also a nice change compared to some of the previous releases as a part of this series, the likes of Evil of the Daleks, as well as the Abominable Snowmen and the Daleks Master Plan, all of which have a very dark design. Even the recent release of the Massacre as well, all very dark, very gloomy. This is exactly the opposite of that. Speaking of bright and vibrant, I absolutely love this gradient that we have at the top as well, as we move from those lighter colours, including these lighter, almost purpley designs here, and then we move up to the sky itself being ever so slightly darker, really making the Doctor Who logo itself stand out, especially with all of the Chinese architecture behind it. And finally, for the front, we have the inclusion of Marco Polo's expedition crew, including lots of camels and other storage units, as well as this lovely effect of the shadows beating down onto the desert sands. Very warm and lovely. And as I mentioned earlier, I absolutely love the design of the armour here in particular on these front two horses, as well as this guy with his uniform on. It's all very detailed and very precise. So now flipping around to the back of the collector's box, basically exactly the same components apply, as they've used exactly the same design and colour palette, and it is equally just as lovely. I absolutely love the fact that we have more exposure of the sky in the background, featuring lots of different shades of blue, as well as that warm below with the desert and definitely reflecting on the TARDIS. If anything, it looks kind of like a Doctor Who does a holiday travel brochure, with the inclusion of the TARDIS there in the background. And of course, a nice theme that's continued throughout the rest of this series is that we have the TARDIS and a landscape with no aliens or anything on it, kind of showing the variety of Doctor Who throughout this time period. Hiding away in the corner, we also get a little bit of company information stating that this episode stars William Hartnell, is written by John Lucarotti, and features linking narration by William Russell, who does of course portray the one and only Ian Chesterton. Turning around to the side of the box now, this has been coloured a dark blue, I do believe to in keep with the rest of the releases as a part of this series so far. Top corner we do get the inclusion of the BBC and Doctor Who logos, as well as stating that this is Marco Polo, which if you've been collecting this series since its very beginning, no doubt by this point you have a shelf, and probably the vast majority of the collector's sets are in chronological order on said shelf, and this nice lettering on the side of the box makes differentiating between the different collector's sets a lot easier, and who knows, maybe within a few years' time we'll have the entirety of 1960s Doctor Who within this format, which if that is the case it will look absolutely glorious, but god do I feel sorry for the shelf that's going to need to hold it, because it's going to be very heavy but very pretty. As always with this series, the box has been made out of a high quality corrugated cardboard in order to ensure that the records on the inside of the box are safe, and overall the quality of the cardboard itself really does feel premium, especially with this lovely embossing across the front, making it feel like a product that is worth the recommended retail price, and again is something special to add to your collection. The inside of the lid, as well as the base of the box, also have the inclusion of the Time Vortex, again in a rather stylised design, much like the front cover art. The colour palette of this once again reflects the front, using a lovely orange vortex. So now taking a look at the contents on the inside of the collector's box, in case you haven't seen enough of the glorious cover art, here we have it once again, this time around textless, with the absence of the Doctor Who logo. Hang this around to the back, as it is only a thin piece of paper. We do of course have the usual style guide, featuring a lovely shooting star effect, and of course the vast majority of the cast from this episode. We also have a few details at the top, stating that this episode was first broadcast on BBC One between the 22nd of February 1964 and the 4th of April. And then of course at the very bottom we have the inclusion of a number of different credits, both for the initial 1960s production as well as the current record release. As for the actual records themselves, once again this is following exactly the same layout to some of the previous releases, where we have various different images that can of course be put together, which we'll be taking a look at in a second. However, on the inside of said case we have the record sleeve itself. Now this is made out of a really high quality cardboard, once again protecting the record on the inside of the sleeve, and as for the sleeve itself, this is of course a standard design, this time in a red and orange colour palette with the TARDIS flying around space. Then of course turning around to the back we have a number of details about the disc itself. So this is LP1, and as a result it is only one-sided. Normally this would have, say, side C and side D with both episodes on, but this time I have side A, which is Roof of the World, as at this point within Doctor Who history they do of course name each individual story, as well as stating a little bit about the episode itself and the various cast members. On the sides of each slipcase it does also feature the LP number, ensuring that once you put them back in the slipcase you can put them back in order, making listening a little bit easier. Placing the record slipcases in a certain order reveals basically a close-up variation of the back of the collector's box itself, featuring the TARDIS exterior box on the Gobi Desert backdrop, with of course the Great Wall of China in the background. And then slipping the record sleeves around to the opposite side, we have the inclusion of the cover art once again, this time round basically triple the size, featuring the TARDIS of course being carted along the Gobi Desert. Now I think it would be really lovely on one of the future releases as a part of this series to maybe have an actual image from the story itself within this large format, just to kind of show what the episode was really like back in the 1960s. But once again, this is really stylish and sets the product off well. So now it's time for my favourite part of the review, talking about how pretty the colours are on the LP. And as always, the Demon Music Group do an absolutely incredible job. I love how unique each and every record is. And of course, even within this collector set, each individual LP is unique in its own right. Of course, you have this one here towards the side, which has lots of dots around the middle, almost circulating around the midsection. And then we look at this vinyl here. There's almost like an exploding firework or a colouring that a child would do using colouring pencils, with all this lovely shaped design almost around the side, and again lots of flares around the centre, both of which having a rather lovely translucent base. And of course that is solely down to how vinyl records are made. It's basically like throwing different pigments and colours into a barrel, and then what comes out the other side is a complete surprise. So it's nice to know that you have something that is going to be 100% unique. And to be honest, I think I have a life goal to eventually at some point within my life actually go to a vinyl making facility and simply just watch them throw colours into the machine and make all sorts of weird and wacky records. I just love it, it's very satisfying, and yes, great job as always. I do believe this one's called a Sandstorm Desert Vinyl, something like that. It's really cool, and yes, I definitely recommend it for the pretty colours alone as always. And of course, due to this being a 4LP collector set and Marco Polo is a 7-part story, we have one side of a record remaining that is 100% blank. Now we've seen this on a number of occasions before as part of this series, meaning that there is absolutely no media on this side, hence why there isn't a label. And what they've decided to do is do a TARDIS etched design, as it says on the label. And I must admit, I've never fully seen this design until placing it in front of my massive studio lights, and even then I think it's very, very, very difficult to show up on camera. So I'm trying to zoom in as best as I can to kind of show you what's going on. You may be able to see ever so slightly down here the inclusion of a TARDIS window, then that goes up to the Please Public Call Box signage there at the very top. Basically to the naked eye you can kind of see it in certain lights, and it is very, very subtle and cool. You may in fact be able to see the Please Public Call Box pull to open bit down here as well, and a few further rectangles. I think it's ever so slightly showing up, but yes, this is really cool. So in summary, for the Doctor Who vinyl record release of the first Doctor 1964 story Marco Polo, as written by John Luke Rotti and produced on record by the Demon Music Group, another absolutely glorious collector set. By far the best thing about this product is the quality of the product itself. It's glorious. The actual setting itself of the cardboard case is lovely, high quality, protects the products on the inside of the box, but also the records are glorious in their own way. I absolutely love the colours that have been used, and the actual artwork itself is very unique and something of which that you can only really expect from this series of products. It's different, and it's something that makes a change from our usual 1960s episodes of Doctor Who that we are so used to experiencing within black and white. This is the exact opposite of that. We have a lovely, vibrant cover art which stands out. Same thing applies to this product that applies to all the other products that I've reviewed as a part of this series so far, and something of which I briefly touched on as well within the Record Store Day Massacre review, where this product will not be for everybody, much like how 1960s Doctor Who, Missing Doctor Who series materials aren't for everybody. Sometimes people need that visual aid in order to fully understand the story. It's a very similar reason as to why some Doctor Who fans do not enjoy Big Finish, because it can be very difficult sometimes to experience the audio drama format and fully understand what is going on, in particular for a release likes of this, where we are relying on a recording of a story that was initially intended to be experienced visually on a screen as opposed to within the audio format, and that is of course where the linking narration comes in. But that said, at the same time, this is a product that I recommend to the collectors. If you love this story, then yes, I definitely recommend buying this product, because it is a very special release and a great celebration of this 1960s Doctor Who episode that doesn't have a DVD, that doesn't have a Blu-ray, because it doesn't exist visually within the TV archive. And I think that if you've collected the other records as a part of this series so far, you know exactly what to expect. A lovely premium product with some glorious cover art and some bloody pretty looking vinyls. So thank you very much for watching this review. I really hope you have enjoyed it. Do of course stay tuned on the Host Productions for brand new Doctor Who content each and every week, from Big Finish reviews, product reviews and much more. So thanks for watching, have a nice day, I shall see you all next time. Bye for now.